monitor brightness can be increased, which is very helpful in sunny conditions. Sadly, that's not compatible with 4K video. Also worth noting that the screen looks black when I'm wearing my polarized sunglasses. What you will find useful in sunny settings with a wide dynamic range are Sony's picture profile settings. Now, these presets hide a really large set of parameters to manage the sensor's output, and the headline feature here are the gamma adjustments, including Sony's log settings to increase the dynamic range. Picture Profile 7 uses S-Log2. The minimum ISO available for this setting is 1000. Make sure the ND is on. And even so, you'll need to reduce your aperture to get a proper exposure. Make sure it's well away from the right side of the histogram. Now, this creates a very flat and low contrast scene, which requires exposure and color adjustment while editing. You can simplify this by using a lookup table setting in your video editor, usually called LUTs, and not only restore the image to a full contrast range, they can also add a color grade to create a specific look. I leave those creative decisions to you. Picture Profile 10 uses HLG, hybrid log gamma. If your display supports HLG, it will recognize the signal and present it with a wider dynamic range. If not, you'll get the standard range. Now, I did recently record a scene while canoeing, and we did 3 takes to see which worked best for the wide dynamic range and constantly changing lighting on the river. Now, this is the scene with the settings I described at the beginning of the video. And although I'm generally happy with the exposure, my hair and the sky is often blown out. In this take, I used Profile 7 and reduced the aperture to f11. In editing, I adjusted exposure and color. The contrast is lower, and while that means that the entire scene seems to be exposed properly, it feels a little flat, particularly for skin tones. However, overall, that's the one that looked best and the one I posted. And this is the HLG recording. Now, even though Final Cut will place a high dynamic range clip on a standard clip timeline as one scene, this doesn't represent what you'd get, even if you have a compatible screen. Now, if you plan to use the picture profiles, Sony's Help for Creators site will help better understand the many settings that are available. But I also encourage you to experiment with the settings that you think might be useful before you commit a shoot to either log profile or HLG. If you're using picture profiles, turn the Gamma Display Assist to Auto to provide a better indication of what the final image will look like on the LCD. Once you have these settings configured for a specific use, like interior or exterior shooting, or with different picture profiles, they can be saved to memory. There are 3 in-camera slots, 4 more can be recorded on the SD card. After it's registered, it can be recalled from the mode's MR position. Then the upper left shows which is active. Now, I suggest you save it to a card and then back up the card on a computer, and that provides the option to restore it to the card after formatting or transfer it to another camera. I said that there were 2 ways to create slow motion. One option is to use the HD 1080 setting and shoot at 120 frames. Conform to 30 frames using your video editor, that's 4 times slow. And then there's also the silent HFR mode, which creates the slow effect in camera. HFR has its own exposure mode setting. The HFR settings set the playback rate, although the menu calls it the record setting. This is the frame rate that the clip plays at when it's completed. Frame rate is the recording rate. With playback at 30, 240 is 8 times, 480 is 16 times, 960 is 32 times slow. After selecting the settings, set the exposure and focus, then press the center key. Press Video Record to start recording. While recording, the screen shows buffering. Then the frames are saved to a file, while the screen shows recording. Quality records shorter clips, Shoot time is longer, but lower quality. Either way, recording time is very short. Quality records for about 2 seconds. Time records for about 4 seconds. With quality, the 240 rate is 18 seconds long, 960 about a minute. With time, at 240, you'll have a 30-second clip, 960 about 2 minutes. The timing option lets you record from when you press, or records the last few seconds before you press, or from a second or so before you press. It's a little complicated, but slow motion nearly always pays off. The ZV-1 does have an interval timer for time-lapse. Interval from 1 to 60 seconds, 10,000 minus 1 shots. It shows how long the shoot will take, but you'll have to create the time-lapse video in editing. In-camera time-lapse would certainly have been appreciated by vloggers. We have complained about Sony's video file numbering sequence in the past, so now the numbering doesn't reset every time I format, and there are options to include the date in the file name. Much better. Even just for video, there's a great deal more to explore here. The ZV-1's feature set is nearly identical to the newest, latest, and most expensive Sony models. But sadly, that also means some of the odd quirks of Sony's video settings appear here also. Like the very dated need to switch between NTSC and PAL if you want 25 and 50 frames. Those with video expertise may be looking for Zebra to set exposure. Sony's implementation offers best-in-class features. Pros will also like the ability to use peaking to manage focus. 3 levels, 4 colors. But unlike the competition, peaking doesn't appear on external displays. The ZV-1 outputs HDMI to an external monitor or recorder. If you are recording using picture profiles, that will provide a higher data rate recording for your color grade. But there's lots of complexity in getting the output settings configured, which are inconsistent between HD and 4K. With HD, there's no LCD display once an external device is connected. There is with 4K, but it disappears when you start recording. Although there is an HDMI info setting, that's not available in 4K. However, it's hard to fault a camera that has extensive support for timecode, can save proxy files to simplify editing, and has no recording time limit. Between video and the Intelligent Auto Stills mode, Sony has added an Intelligent Auto Video setting. Although I saw it set shutter speeds much higher than I might for video recording, the quality of the results, these scenes were shot with Intelligent Video, speak for themselves. Although it's only available when recording HD, the ZV-1 can take stills while recording video, a feature that seems designed with thumbnails in mind. Just press the shutter, the photo button on the remote is ideal for that, and watch the upper left for the capture confirmation. The feature is called Dual Record. There are quality settings, extra fine, and size. Large is 17 megapixel. There's also an auto mode for this with 3 frequencies, which is how often it will take an image. I find that it's most responsive when a smiling face is detected. And whether you use the manual or auto versions, there's no interruption to the video. An f1.8 lens provides a great deal of latitude if you're shooting by the light of a single candle. Even ISO 6400 works well. And actually, there's also a slight glow from my Adamus recorder. I'm sure you see it reflected in my glasses and lighting up my shirt. And you've probably noticed that Face Eye Detect is a little erratic with me. Although you could see it in the previous scene, at this point it's gone rogue. I'm going to tap the screen to lock focus on me. I managed to capture a custom white balance under 2500 Kelvin. And this is a very acceptable image, and I'm recording HD 1080 so you can see the settings. This is the Picture Profile 6 preset that uses Cine Gamma 2. The increased low light detail and color rendition matches this lighting. I've switched to 4K. there is a slight crop. This audio, like the other scenes shot in my studio, is recorded from the internal mics, which are better than average. I'm sure you've noticed that my eyeline keeps darting around in this video, between looking directly at the lens, looking over at the monitor, and at the teleprompter, which I've mounted in the flash shoe. I feel like I'm all over the place. Now, that is one of the general drawbacks of vlog-style shooting for me. The closer the camera is, the more obvious that slight change in glance becomes. And let me show you the maximum ISO, 12,800. That comes with a significant increase in noise. The ZV-1 is in demand, so I have to return this review unit after 1 week. I'm going to quickly glance through the stills menu, and this is a more than capable stills camera, with all of Sony's best bells and whistles. There's in-camera panorama, picture effects, filters to create watercolor and HDR images, burst modes up to 24 frames per second with a buffer that holds 150 extra fine JPEGs, about 6 seconds. Touch can be used to focus or tap and snap. The smile shutter setting automatically takes a photo when it sees your subject's smile. There's not much you have to take for granted here, as there are ways to modify many of the operational aspects of this camera. The Fun menu can be reorganized to include the settings you need. By default, it's 2 lines. If you disable all of the second line, it reduces to 1. And note that there are 2 ways to use it. Select a setting and spin the dial to set it quickly, or press for a more methodical selection method. Although there are a few keys to customize, the menu does allow lots of control options. Sony's complex menu system is the result of the comprehensive feature set and capabilities. Among the complaints I've already aired much too frequently are its lack of organization and consistency. And on the ZV-1, it would be helpful if it was more vlog-centric. But never mind. The menu settings, although they require a little thought and organization on my part, do allow me to create a menu that's perfect for my most used settings and workflow. If you do take both stills and video in your practice, that memory recall feature will simplify the transitions from one mode to the other. This review used firmware 1.0. Do watch for updates and upgrades. The ZV-1 uses the Sony X battery size, rated for 260 images or 75 minutes of continuous video shooting. Of course, you could buy more proprietary batteries, but any USB battery device will power and charge this camera. While Sony has provided a great feature set for vloggers, there are a few missed opportunities, like in-camera time-lapse video, more ND settings, and a menu that's designed with vlogging in mind. You can improve your skills by taking photos and video until your memory card is full and your battery is empty. If you like this kind of thing, please take this opportunity to join my channel as a subscriber. And if you have relevant questions or civil comments, I enjoy interacting with you. I will read and reply. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.